I'm delighted to welcome John C. to my channel. Welcome.
Thank you.
I have followed your work for around 5 years. It has really helped me navigate my way through kind of the sense of how unknown the future is, and dealing with my feelings around ecological collapse and some of the other sort of unknowns that we're facing. So I've drawn on your work for years. I've actually written about it in my Green Parent column. You featured in one of my columns. And it has, just provided a lot of nourishment for me. So you can imagine how surprised I was when I saw your name signed up to the last disco round. And I was having quite a fangirl moment, but I feel like I managed to operate still with some dignity. But now I'm doing it. Oh, God. Anyway, it's an amazing privilege to have you. And hopefully this is going to kickstart a bit of a series on my YouTube channel where I just get fun people on and we just chew the fat a bit and see if any great things are said.
Great. So pleased to be here. I'm
Well,
just at the point where I've just had the epiphany that it's time for deep ecology to move into the mainstream and that I'm to help that to happen via social media and podcasts. And so I'm constantly rehearsing and glad for another opportunity.
that's beautiful and very cool to hear. So for listeners and watchers that don't know, Deep Ecology is the movement that John helped found back in the 70s. It's an ecological movement, but for me, it differs from the others because it's quite holistic and really prioritizes kind of nature connection, relationship, and love for the earth, and provides a lot of tools to help you kind of move through the feelings and foster more connection rather than coming at it from other, because I've been involved in environmental activism for years, more than kind of coming at it from a sense of saviorism or kind of a burden. And I remember a beautiful quote that you shared when you were doing your work in the 70s for the rainforest. And that was gnarly, right? You were arrested and you said there came a point where you were not John Seed protecting the rainforest, but you became the rainforest protecting itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Having your words spoken back to you. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, I mean, it was an experience, and so it's hard to know what to say, except I guess that in later years I realized that deep ecology um, gives you a sense of a deeper identity that um, it's not every cell in my body is descended in an unbroken chain that stretches back 4.5 billion years to the first cell of life on Earth, and that as we learn through different ceremonies and rituals how to embody that and how to actually authentically experience that aspect of our identity, then all kinds of insights emerge. And one of those is just the realization that as a human, I've spent 95% of the last 200 million years within that forest. And it should therefore come as no big surprise that it's able to speak to me and to speak through me.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. I had my first significant moment of really feeling spoken to and really feeling messages from the earth when I was going up a mountain to try and stop a drilling rig. And I was walking up there with no idea what I was going to do. When I got to the top, it was a 4-hour walk to the top of this conservation land where they were drilling for gold. I had no idea what I was going to do when I got to the top. But as I was walking, it was almost like the vibration of the mountain was speaking to me, just telling me, you'll know exactly what to do when you get there. And I just felt so held. And then everything that occurred on the mountain then just felt like it was perfect. I could just trust the moment and just be in the moment and not be in my activist head about strategy or, because actually we were really quite powerless. It felt like a very powerless situation, but just feeling the message from the mountain put me at total ease, and I could just trust everything that unfolded. Okay, the question on everybody's lips, I know, is why unschooling? Tell us why you did disco and why you're unschooling. Is there any relationship between your work as a deep ecologist and unschooling, or was it just a matter of need?
I'd say the latter, or at least I haven't asked myself that question before. Perhaps something more will come, but I find myself at this point in my life in the amazing, delicious situation of having a 9-year-old son, and he is one who doesn't take kindly to any kind of authority or direction. And after struggling with that for a long time, and then during COVID, moving to homeschooling, which was definitely better than school, but even homeschooling was just like a constant struggle. And then someone, sent me to your site, and it just totally made sense. And it's been such a relief. There's been peace in the house ever since.
That's so amazing. And I think would definitely echo a lot of people's journey, that it was our children as kind of sovereign beings that led us on to a path that we almost didn't know existed, but that in kind of yielding to that, or surrendering in a way to that unknown, you get led into this whole new world of what is possible. I do want to keep you on your toes a bit though.
Please.
Okay, you can just freestyle. Do you think there's any part of your, the last 50 years of your work as a deep ecologist that has in a way prepared you for being an unschooling dad?
I mean, the thing that comes to me is it's around trust. That it's like, I mean, one way of looking at deep ecology is to recognize that just as in the human body, one emerges as a single cell that's fertilized and breaks into 2 and 4, 8, 16, 32, and eventually some of those cells just begin to migrate in one direction because they're on their way to becoming the liver, and other cells go in another direction because they're going to become neurons in a brain. And there's that they all just trust that they're doing what they need to be doing, that there's no need for decisions, or it's just like that's the nature of life, is to do that. And so deep ecology recognizes that, as well as being these skin encapsulated egos and living in the 21st century, we are also like cells in the body of the earth, and that we are part of the earth, that we emerged from the earth as we emerged from our mother's body, and that if we can learn how to surrender to that aspect of ourselves, which is just this tiny little fragment of a much larger intelligence, that that intelligence can inform us, and we can trust that. So there's just something about really, um, it's also like one of the things that I discovered at a certain point was that when I became confused and lost and had lost the sense of purpose and direction and wasn't sure what I was doing, that I could do something like go into the forest, find the right spot and bury myself in leaves and just imagine my roots sinking into the earth and remember that I am part of the earth, that I have no independent existence, and surrender and think something like, um, Mother, you know what I should be doing, and I know that you'll inform me, and I will know that you're speaking to me through my enthusiasm, so that whatever I feel enthusiastic about, I will take that as being a message from you directing me, and then I'll brush the leaves off and um, I'll be fine. Like I'll be able to go about whatever I need to do next. And so it's that element of trust in the fact that we're not alone. That we're part of this larger, exquisite intelligence that has created not only the human, but has created the human woven into this magnificent tapestry of 10 million plus species co-evolving in nearly eternal kind of magnificence, and that to the extent that I can, trust that, I don't need to rely upon my own kind of, um, you know, decisions. Anyway, so I just felt like it was just something very familiar about unschooling because of that, that I just realized that I can trust my son River much more than I can trust myself to know what it is that he's going to need in his life. And that, so the burden is off my shoulders.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I can feel myself like put at ease as you're speaking, like another little wave of like, just like rest in the process and continuing to trust. I feel my body like just relaxing a little bit more into the Sunday morning. And a couple of things you mentioned, and one is the intuition that led you into the forest to bury yourself in leaves, is an intuition that is available to all of us. We live in such an information dense era where you open up your phone and it's like, oh, do this, do that, do this, think about this, process this, do this, but trust the process, but also do this and also do that. And it can be quite overwhelming, whereas we can just tune into ourselves and be given the medicine that we need for that very moment. And for you, it was burying yourself in leaves. And that's my dog. My dog loves to stand outside. She only does it when I'm on Zoom. She just stands outside the door and barks. She's like, I want to be involved in this. This is an exciting conversation. But we can, when we're feeling maybe overwhelmed by the duty of parenting and the duty of, being in charge of our children's education and all of the info, like, think about this, think about this. We all have an instinct that we can kind of tune into and then just respond to and be like, this is just the one thing I need to do. This is it. I just need to go and lay in the garden. I just need to bury my nose in moss or stare at the clouds or look at the ocean. There's something within us that actually knows what to do, and
Well,
I
it's,
guess.
it's in the same way that the child knew what to do, learning how to speak and learning how to walk and learning, I mean, most children have no difficulty whatsoever with these things. And, perhaps if I had been trusted when I was a child to be able to continue in that way, that, not needing um, what is it? Uh,
School?
I don't need no education. I don't need no thought control, and uh, then it'd be easier for me to trust, to trust my son. But
Yeah.
in any case, it wasn't too hard, and I'm really excited to see the the different things bubbling up and flowering out of him now that he realizes that he's in control.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And that's the other thing is, when you were speaking out loud just then, your prayer to the mother, you were saying, let me trust my enthusiasm. Let me trust, that when my heart leaps at something, that's the goodest sign. That can be an orientation. When we're at sea and when we're kind of confused, like we can just every day wake up and choose to just trust at the leap of our heart and our enthusiasm. And that is basically unschooling in a nutshell, right? Is just creating a slow enough life, a spacious enough environment so that our kids can feel free to follow the thread of their enthusiasm into the things, that I think are going to be the intersection of their kind of innate genius and their joy. I think that's where unschooling can take us. It sounds frivolous. It's like, oh, just enthusiasm. But to me, the end of the enthusiasm rope is our creative genius. So if we follow it, we actually get to the place where we are offering into this web of into being. We're offering like that unique expression of ourselves that is so needed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another question about unschooling because I feel like you freestyled that quite excellently. So I want to ask, it's a bit of a meta question, and I want to just see that I can capture it. And maybe you've thought about it and maybe you haven't, but I've thought about it. So I'll say where it comes from. And it's just like I'm building it up as if it is a really big deal. It's not even an amazing question. But to me, as we kind of like feel our way into this new era, into the anthropocene, to me, it feels like unschooling is the perfectly designed learning environment for walking into the unknown, for all the reasons kind of we've discussed. And I'd just love to hear you talk a little bit more about that. Like, what do you think? Is there anything else perhaps that you feel unschooling or, more radical learning environments or trustful parent-child dynamics offer the future for planet or people?
Well, I mean, it's clear to me that the um, powers that be that are responsible for the systems of education that exist have not got the slightest clue as to what kind of a future we're trying to prepare for. Nobody has got a clue. I haven't got a clue. And so to hand over your children into that system just because it's too hard to think of what else to do just seems to be like a real failure of, you know, duty of care and responsibility and so on. And
Mm.
um, it is so unknown that, in a way, I just sort of feel like, okay, so deep ecology, um, the experiential deep ecology workshops that I facilitate and that I teach uh, um, arose from a meeting of the philosophy of deep ecology, the ideas of deep ecology, with the work of Joanna Macy, a a Buddhist teacher and a great soul, um, uh, who taught me about the importance of trusting our feelings. That our feelings are what remains of a much more ancient intelligence that preceded cognition. 99.99999% of our ancestors were intelligent enough to reach the age of reproducing themselves before they were consumed, before we grew this big bulge over our nose and started to think our way through the world. And so these feelings are, any mammal that runs towards something wagging its tail when it should be running away as fast as it can doesn't leave its genes in the gene pool. That in every generation, what's selected for is exquisitely intelligent feelings that guide one in the right direction. And so
Apart from my dog.
well, that's right.
This is
So
that
so that brings us back to enthusiasm, which is like a feeling that we can trust. And so Arnie Ness, who coined the term deep ecology, explained that ecological ideas won't be enough to save us. What we need is ecological identity or ecological self. And it was through meeting Joanna Macy that she and I then began to construct the community therapies, the ceremonies and rituals whereby we could move into our ecological identity, where we could nourish our ecological identity. And whoops, what was the question?
I love where it's going. The question was about the opportunities of unschooling in the Anthropocene, like what unschooling kind of offers this unknown future. And I can
Okay.
feel that
So
it's
so
going.
so in the workshops we use Joanna Macy's spiral of the work that reconnects. We start with gratitude. We move on to honoring our pain for the world. So this is um, really honoring these feelings, especially the feelings that are suppressed, the rage and the terror and the grief and the horror about what's happening to us. And we discover that when we create a safe container for these feelings, that we're not crushed, we're not destroyed by these feelings, that indeed a tremendous empowerment is liberated, because they've been pushing up with the energy of natural selection behind them, trying to inform us about the world. And we've been pushing back with our socialization and our conditioning and so on. So that when we allow these feelings, when we allow ourselves to hear these feelings from others and we allow ourselves to feel them, there's a huge liberation, and we experience that as empowerment. And then we go on to celebrate the universe. And we're in a position to celebrate the universe because this is not a denial. This is not everything's going to be okay. No, we've just been through hell together of the most intense feelings of terror and rage that we've either experienced in ourselves or we've witnessed in others. And so then the celebration that bubbles up after that is utterly authentic and no holds barred. And, what I've come to realize is that when we are honest about just how dire our predicament is as humans, and when we take on board the possibility that we may be the last generation after 4,000 million years of successful evolution, after surviving mass extinction after mass extinction, now the flame that has been passed from fin to paw and now into our trembling hands may be on the point of being extinguished. At that point, what can you possibly do? How can one live at a time like that? And what comes to me is, well, first, it's not over till it's over. And so, of course, we continue to struggle in every way that we can to stop the mining on that mountain, to stop the destruction of that forest. And we must celebrate this exquisite universe that we've had the privilege to inhabit for 4,000 million years. And whether we're able to pull it off and find a way through this next one or not, whatever, regardless, it'd be churlish of us not to just give utter thanks for what a beautiful, beautiful thing it's been to have been here at all. And you know, what a privilege to be around at a time like this. So then looking at this little boy, you know, it's like, well, I just want him to celebrate. I don't want him to be preparing for an unknown future. I just want him to live to the full every moment of his sweet little life, because there's no telling, you know, whether there's any future at all. You know, imagine wasting all of your time preparing for a future that's not even going to exist when you could have been celebrating this universe and enjoying the deliciousness of it all. Anyway, so you know, one of the things that it's liberated me to do is to just allow him to live in the present time, in this moment of his life, without either of us having to worry about what's going to happen next.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, John. I felt the celebration. And it reminds me, you know, of that old kind of invitation to live every day as though it is your last, you know, and if that was true for your children, how would you want for them to spend their last day on Earth? Hell, you would not want them to be sitting at a desk studying something they couldn't care less about, being punished and shamed for expressing themselves. You know, that is the opposite, probably, of what you would actually wish for them to spend. I mean, phrasing it like that is a little bit morbid, because obviously what we're facing is no certainty one way or the other. And it feels like what you sometimes have is too much certainty. I guess it's the human desire, like our safety zone of wishing for not the knowns and wanting certainty. So we have sort of the camp, which is just march along, everything is going to be the same. Some kind of technological advancement is going to stop us all from you know, self-combusting. And then on the other hand, you know, just pure terror that we are definitely the last. And, you know, there's a movement of people that are in my circles who don't have children anymore. You know, they don't want to bring children onto the planet Earth because they're so worried, and I guess so sure that it's a fixed track. And I guess what I feel in the invitation of deep ecology is to continue to rest in the uncertainty, and to allow that in uncertainty there's also so much possibility. You know, possibility exists in the unknown. So to get as comfortable as I can in that feeling of not knowing, and resist that human desire to be like, just cling to something for God's sake. But you know, that invitation serves me really well with my kids, because so much of this territory is unprovable. All I have, you know, there's a little bit of research, as you know, we went through on disco. There's a little bit of research, but it's not kind of scientifically proper. You know, the numbers of people that were questioned as grow and unschoolers was too tiny to be you know, significant for actual research purposes. But all we really have is our own instinct on this, and all we really have is how what we're doing day by day matches up to these other principles, these other values that are our compass for all of life. You know, so for me, unschooling rhymes with the compass of joy that I have, you know, and it rhymes with the compass of connection that I have, you know, but that's all I have. I've got no quantifiable certainty. So the practice over the last few years of existing in the unknown about what the anthropocene looks like, you know, serves me so well in all of the areas where I'm having to be like, I just got my intuition, you know, my roots in the earth, and you know, hope. Hope and a prayer. Okay, we do have to draw to a little bit of a close. Oh, I've got so many questions, but some of these are very personal and meta. I want to actually hear your thoughts on things. Okay, I'm not even going to go there. We'll have to have a part two, John. What do you reckon?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. I would really love that. But just for my final question.
I want to say that how much support that I felt from your enthusiastic, joyful approach to the whole thing. Like the disco thing. It wasn't so much the particular things that I learned, but just you embodying all of that. So yeah, no, we can have as many of these as you like. It's a great way to start Sunday.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's so good. So the active hope spiral that you mentioned, beginning with gratitude and honoring our pain and seeing with new eyes. Yeah, I've been facilitating those over the last few years, and did a couple with the student strikers, the school strike for climate, and I did one of those for Greenpeace, who were holding a camp. And it was extremely intense because they get really intense, the circles where you're telling the truth about your feelings. And I could feel the Greenpeace facilitator's eyes like on me during the circle, like, does she have this? Like, what is she doing to our students? As I was just holding space for their feelings, but exactly as you described, like unfolded, they were able to be truthful. They'd been going to school counselors, and the school counselors were saying, is this really grief about your mother Earth, or are you having friend problems? And does your boyfriend, is he not really committed to you? Like, they would try and really trivialize these huge feelings. And but what, as you're saying, what they're feeling is these huge, deep, honorable emotions. And sure enough, holding that intense couple of hours, we came out the other end of it, and everybody was lighter. Everybody felt seen. Everybody could allow those feelings to transmute and to flow into the deep love that they felt. And we ended those circles singing and in joy and in deep connection with one another. Why did I tell that story? I can't remember. But right, the last bit of the spiral. So once you've done all that deep, gnarly truth telling, you kind of come through, and then the last bit is going forth. So I would love for you to finish this part one with John Seed. What your main mission is going forth for the time being.
Well, I've just come through how to say, I'm 77 years old, and I've come through a very my life hasn't become any more kind of steady, or I found myself, I had a tumor behind my right eye, and I spent several years with nothing on my mind other than staying alive. And if I hadn't had a little boy, I doubt that I would have bothered. Like, it was just utterly insane, the whole thing. And on several occasions, I was at death's door, and it was like call the relatives and so on. And somehow I made it through. And when I emerged on the other side and started to regain my strength, I discovered, to my amazement and joy, um, that the passions that I'd felt through most of my life, throwing myself at the beast to protect nature, was returning, and that it had this very new kind of fresh kind of quality. I felt reborn, and I felt so young in that. All of the insights, which were just the things that I'd been believed and known and taught for 40 years, were just bubbling up as if they were new. And as I say, I got this sense that it was time for deep ecology to move into the mainstream, and that I was to use podcasts and social media. And so all of a sudden, I became interested in Facebook. I've got 5,000 Facebook friends, and I'm exploring these, double-edged swords for sure, horrible kind of technologies. But to see if I can put them to the service of the earth. And so my going forth is, like I'm off Broadway at the moment. I'm doing little podcasts on Sunday morning with Lucy, but I'm aiming for Joe Rogan, and like I'm rehearsing for Broadway, and yeah. So meanwhile, I'm doing at least 1 or 2 weekends a month. I've stopped traveling around the world, which I did for decades, and I'm restricting myself to the east coast of Australia at the moment. But I sort of feel like Australia, deep ecology is bubbling up in a way that it hasn't before. My workshops are filling up with a waiting list and so on. And plus I'm building a house here at the Narara Eco Village, and I need to make a living. And so all of a sudden, like I'm making a living, run as a
Yeah.
workshop facilitator, and life is good.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that's an example of um the symbiotic relationship, right? That, you can thrive while in service to life and to the earth. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it is.
Thank you so much. It's been such a privilege and honor to spend this time with you. And yeah, I would love to do a part two with you sometime. That would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure, Lucy. I'd love that.